Thank you, Michelle. And hi, everybody. Welcome. Thanks for coming tonight. Appreciate your interest in the MHC program at Brooklyn College. Apologize for my wonky virtual background here, but you're not here to look at me. So I'm going to share my screen to show some PowerPoint slides to kind of go over the details of the program here. I'll just make a relatively brief presentation about the program because all the information, or most of the information that I'm going to present now, is available to you on the program website, and that is mhc.brooklyn.cuny.edu. And you'll see that on, I think, the first slide, and I'll remind you later. But don't worry about taking notes. All of this is available to you, on our website. I will go over it a little bit, but then I want to save most of the time for answering your questions about the program. That's really why I'm here. Again, my name is Greg Coleman. I'm the director of the MHC program in the psychology department here at Brooklyn College, and happy to be here tonight to talk with you about the program. So let me, without further ado, share the screen if I can. I hope that everybody's can see that. So as I promised, here is the contact information. And then Buzzy, if you can see this, will you give me like a thumbs up? Yeah, okay, good. I'm trying to move the chat box out of the way. Okay, so again, there's a Gmail address that you can use to follow up on with any questions that don't get answered tonight or any information that you want. It's BC for Brooklyn College, MHC for mental health counseling, P for program. So bcmhcp@gmail. And the web address is equally simple to remember. It's just mhc.brooklyn.cuny.edu, and you see the phone number there as well. Here's some general information about the program. It's a 60 credit full-time master's degree program, intended to prepare you to work in mental health settings, whether those are agency settings, healthcare settings, private practice settings, hospital settings, substance use kind of programs. There are a lot of different settings where Brooklyn College MHC graduates are working. Students complete a 600-hour internship at an approved clinical site, and I'll tell you more about that as we go on. I think one of the things about this program is that it provides exposure to the three major clinical approaches: psychodynamic, experiential and humanistic, or Gestalt, and CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy. And students pass a case study comprehensive exam during their final semester in the program. That's a spring semester. And when you complete the program, you're eligible to work in an agency with a limited permit. You then need to do 3 years of supervised experience before you can actually become licensed. And somewhere in that 3 years, usually right after people complete the program, they try to take the licensing exam while things are sort of fresh in their mind. Here's a little overview of the curriculum in the program. Again, this program is a full-time intensive program, so we have it structured so that you can graduate in 2 years. So you see the fall semester, Foundations of Mental Health Counseling, Developmental Psychology, Psychopathology, and the thing that is the kind of core of the first year experience, the assessment techniques class and the assessment practicum. And that's where you actually get to work with clients starting in the very first semester. So those are two unique things about this program. Not every program gives you a broad exposure to a range of clinical approaches, that is psychodynamic, CBT, and experiential approaches. A lot of programs have their particular approach, and then they may give you some brief intro to some of the other approaches, but they have an approach that they're kind of pushing. In our program, we try to give you an in-depth introduction to each of these major approaches to doing counseling and therapy so that you have a kind of broad background where you can make the choice about which of these approaches will work best for you as a counselor. In the January intersession, you'll take a class on ethical and legal issues. In the spring semester of your first year, the psychodynamic approaches course. And also, at the same time, a cognitive and behavioral approaches to mental health counseling. Also, a group process class, that's for group counseling. And you'll be continuing in your counseling practicum where you will see some clients. So not every MHC program allows you to do work with clients in the very first semester, in the first year. And we think that people learn best when they're actually engaged in doing the work. That helps the more academic classes make a lot more sense and helps you kind of internalize your learning better. And over the summer, between the 2 years, you'll take a class that starts in June, and usually we try to finish just before or just after July 4th, and that is the Cultural Foundations class, Social, Linguistic, and Cultural Foundations, where we talk about how these very important issues influence what goes on in counseling. Then the beginning of your second year, fall semester, experiential approaches, couples and family, and you will be doing your counseling internship. That's 20-hour-a-week internship, 600 hours. So you have plenty on your plate coming into your second year. And these approaches courses, the psychodynamic, the CBT, the experiential courses, the couples and family course, all of these different counseling approaches are taught by experts. That is, we get people who have a clinical practice in that specific area. They are a CBT therapist or they are a psychodynamic therapist with a lot of experience. So they will be able to share with you their experience in working with clients, in working with groups, in working with couples and families. And ideally, they're going to be trying to persuade you. They are evangelists for their point of view. So you'll be pulled in different directions by different instructors in different classes. They'll all be trying to win you over and try to help you understand what the advantages are to their particular approach to doing counseling or therapy. In either January or the spring, you'll take a career development class, which part of the class focuses on your own career transition, which in the last semester of the program, you're going to be thinking about what you're going to do after graduation. For a lot of students, that means that they will get offered an entry-level position by the place that they have been doing their internship. But not everyone will get an offer from their internship site. So you'll be facing your own career issues, and we will use that to kind of help you and to illustrate how to do career development counseling with your clients. And then in your last semester in the program, research methods and program evaluation, continuing your internship class, and you'll have an elective class. If you're working at a counseling internship site where you're working with kids and adolescents, you'll be required to take the child and adolescent counseling elective. If you're working at a different site, you'll take either the trauma and severe mental illness elective, or sometimes we run the substance use and addictions counseling, and one of those two is the second elective generally. We want to emphasize to you that this is a full-time intensive MHC program. A lot of programs are part-time programs. This is different. This is not a part-time program. And there's some advantages to that, but there's some challenges to that. This program is not for everyone. Full-time, daytime, year-round, all over in 2 years, but you have to work hard to finish in 2 years. You'll be fully occupied with classes and practicum and internship, and classes even during January, classes in the summer. You will get the second half of July and all of August off to kind of recover your resilience between years. But this is not a program for people who need to work a lot of hours while they're in while they're doing their master's degree. And I think it's not in vogue right now for people to borrow money for their education, but I think that you should consider doing that instead of trying to work particularly if you're going to be working in a job that is not necessarily well paid, because no one is going to get rich working as a mental health counselor, but you will certainly make more, as a mental health counselor than you might work, in a retail position or, some other kind of part-time job. If you have a highly paid part-time job, good for you. And you might want to, do a little of that, but investing in your education is a good purpose for loans. So the combination of the practicum and internship, the internship is, as I said, is 20 hours a week, plus the coursework makes it tough to work. So you'll see that we run the first year classes on Mondays, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays between the hours of 9 and 5. There are 5 classes. And the classes run for about 2.5 hours to 3 hours. It's 3 50-minute hours, and there are breaks during the classes. So it runs close to 3 hours, but it is during the daytime, and it is 4 days a week. And you will have appointments with 1 or more clients for counseling in addition to those class hours. The second year classes meet on Monday and Wednesday during daytime hours. And then in addition to that, we leave Tuesday and Thursday and Friday open for you to get your 20 hours a week of work at your internship site in. So that pretty much takes up the week. And again, the intersession January classes and the summer classes can be multiple days per week in order to complete the class within the 1-month time frame, January and June mostly. So internship, again, here are the details I've already mentioned, the hours and so forth, and a list of some of the sites that have hosted interns from our program. And it's quite a long list. You see a few of the sites here, and there's more. So you can see that a lot of internship sites take our students. One of the things that I want to point out is that we get very good feedback from the internship sites about the students who prepare in this program. They find our students to be well prepared, and we hear the same things from our students who are working as interns in programs. They generally have a sense that they are better prepared than the interns from some other programs, from social work programs and from some other MHC programs. And I can tell you a little bit about why that is in a minute. But first, let's talk about the admissions requirements for the program. You need a bachelor's degree coming into the program. It does not have to be in psychology, but you need to be a good student. Around a 3.3 GPA is a minimum. Of course, that depends on the quality of the college that you attended. But we want you to be able to succeed in a demanding, rigorous program. It's not difficult. I wouldn't say it's difficult to get into the Brooklyn College program if you're well prepared. We usually have places for about the number of well-prepared students who apply. So, we don't want to take in anybody who's not well prepared, but if you are well prepared, we probably have a place for you, particularly if you apply early in the cycle and not at the last minute. And I guess because you're at this open house because you're thinking ahead. So you want to demonstrate in your application that you can handle an intensive training program. If you do not have a psychology major, you do need at least 15 credits of psychology courses, and you have to have at least one course in each of the 4 areas listed. That's intro or general psychology, a course in developmental, a course in abnormal or psychopathology. Those are 2 names for the same thing. And a course in psychology statistics. And 15 credits means 1 other course in addition to those 4. If you apply without that background, that's fine. We consider applications from people who have not completed those 4 courses, and that's okay. We will consider you, but you have to complete those courses. Excuse me. You have to complete those courses before you start the program. So that means next spring or this fall or over the summer, next summer, so that you have those courses completed. If you're just missing 1 class, sometimes you can take that class maybe in the summer between 1st and 2nd year, depending on what the class is that you're missing. So if you are missing some of the prerequisite courses, there are ways to handle that. You don't have to have standardized tests like the GRE. You do have to have a personal statement. You have to have 3 letters of recommendation, of which we suggest at least 2 come from academic references, usually professors, instructors, and optionally 1 out of the 3 could be from a professional, maybe regarding related experience. We do suggest that people have some related experience working with people in a helping role. Maybe you've been a tutor, maybe you've worked at a summer camp, maybe you've worked in some other capacity, helping people as a volunteer or in a job. We like to see that people know what they're getting into. You need transcripts from all your post-secondary institutions, from your colleges, every college you've attended. And you need to complete a summary sheet, which is available on the admissions website. Okay, so why should you get an MHC degree instead of a social work degree? Right? There are a lot more social work programs, and frankly, social work programs are a lot bigger. For instance, you'll see in the last bullet, we're about 40 students per year in our program. And a social work program is about 10 times as big. Some of them are 400 students, some of them are 500 students, some of them are 300 students, but it's an order of magnitude larger. And it's a big crowd that you'll be in, and they will take, people who are not as well prepared necessarily as the people who will come to an MHC program. So the MHC program is very focused on counseling, as you saw in our curriculum. Whereas if you're in a social work program, they won't offer all of those courses that you saw listed for the MHC. They have to leave some of those classes out because they have to have classes in social policy. They have to have classes in, casework and other areas of social work, and that dilutes their focus on counseling compared to an MHC program. So, you can compare the coursework if you're thinking about getting a social work degree. Social work degree, though, may be appropriate for you if you want to do things like casework or social policy, because you will get preparation for that in a social work program. What are the advantages of our MHC program versus an MHC program at another university or another college? This program, unlike a lot of programs, was designed in a psychology department, and it was designed from scratch specifically for the requirements of the MHC license. A lot of other programs were created essentially by expanding a school counseling program, usually in a school of education. So that the faculty originally was a school counseling faculty, and then they added some classes and maybe added some instructors to be able to meet the requirements of the MHC degree. And it's a very different focus and approach to training counselors. The other difference with our program, and I mentioned this before, is that we like to emphasize learning by doing. We like to begin our students with doing what we call an intake session, an intake interview, an assessment interview, to work with clients, get some experience working with clients, and bring the material to life right in their first semester in the Brooklyn College personal counseling clinic, where we can give you close supervision and support you. So we're not sending you out into the big bad world yet, but you're getting a chance to get your feet wet and to, and to see how the counseling approaches that you're learning about work in action. I mentioned to you that we try to get instructors for the specialty courses who are specialists in their areas, CBT, dynamic, and Gestalt areas. We don't favor any particular area. We, we make a space for you to explore and find the approach or approaches that seem to be the best fit for you. And the classes in our program are reasonable size. The clinical classes, the supervision classes for practicum and internship experiences are usually 10, 11, 12 students, sometimes 9. And the more didactic classes like psychopathology and developmental are 20 or 22 students, sometimes 18 or 19. It depends on the year and the size of the cohort. I think one of the really special things about the Brooklyn College program, because it's a 2-year program with a relatively small cohort, you all come in at the same time, you all go through together, all the 40 of you. You don't have every class together, but it's not like a part-time program where people are kind of coming or going. Some people are taking 2 or 3 classes, other people are taking only 1 class, and you kind of are passing each other at different rates, and people are primarily focused maybe on their job or on their kids or on both, and their academic work is maybe a secondary focus for them. At Brooklyn College, you're really in with a group of people who are part of an intensive program, and that's the primary focus of their life at that point. And they've made that commitment, and you're all going through it together. I remember from my graduate training that it's great to have good professors, it's great to have good classes, it's good to have experience, but a lot of the support I got, a lot of the time I spent talking with people and discussing was with my peers. And so I think the peer kind of experience at Brooklyn College, where you're going through with the same set of people and you will make probably lifelong friends, with your peers, with the people that you do your professional training with. That's an important support for you in a program like this that you don't get in every program. You don't have the opportunity to take 2 years of classes together with the same 30 or 40 people, and find the people in that group that you feel are supportive for you. You won't get close to everybody, but you will find people that you can share that experience with, and that's very valuable, in my opinion. So some people ask about accreditation for the Brooklyn College program. The program is registered, and that means approved by the New York State Education Department. The program can't come into existence or continue to operate without meeting the standards. And those laws, rules, and regulations are based on the national accreditation standards. And all programs at Brooklyn College are accredited by the Middle States Commission, which is one of the regional accrediting agencies in the US. We are not accredited by the CACREP accreditation organization. That's the Council for Accreditation for Counseling and Related Education Programs. But the New York State standards are based on the CACREP standards, so we know that our program is equivalent to a CACREP accredited program. The way this will come up, it will not be an issue for licensing in New York, but for people who are interested in becoming licensed in other states, in New Jersey, in Connecticut, in Florida, in California, in Illinois, in Texas, you will need to check with the state boards in those states. Usually, we've been through this with a lot of our grads. They don't all stay in New York. So what's involved if you come from a non-CACREP program like ours, you will need to submit some extra equivalency paperwork showing things like course syllabi and what courses, your transcript, what courses you took, but the details of the courses. And we're used to helping you put together a package of your course syllabi and so forth. You'll have to demonstrate to the licensing board in Texas, for instance, that you come from a program that meets their standards. You won't have trouble doing that, but you will have to do the paperwork, and we will help you do that. But not every state licenses mental health counselors. Last I looked, it was about 40, or maybe we're getting up to 45 states now that have licensure. In some states, they call it professional counselor, a PC license. There are different titles. Most states now are calling it mental health counselor, but it varies from states to state. But insofar as there is some standardization, we meet those standards. So people always ask me, what about a doctoral program? You know, how about should I come to the MHC program, or I'm planning to come and do this degree program and then go on for a doctorate? And I advise you not to do this. If you are qualified to be admitted to a doctoral program, apply directly to a doctoral program. Don't do an MHC or an MSW or any other master's program before you do the doctorate, because a doctoral program is going to give you a somewhat higher quality training experience. Often there are smaller classes. Often doctoral programs have access to better clinical sites, different clinical sites. There are some clinical sites that just won't look at master's level students. They take doctoral students. And in the end, with a doctoral degree, the salaries are somewhat higher and people like to be called doctor. So there are some advantages, but people insist on thinking that no, a master's program is going to be quicker and dirtier. It's the quick and dirty route. They're going to quickly be able to start earning some money. And actually, it doesn't quite work that way. Or they think they're going to do 2 years of work here and then go on and apply it to a doctoral degree. A lot of doctoral programs don't give any credit or give very limited credit for the master's degree credits that people do. So you should look into that carefully if you're thinking that you're going to go that route. But the main thing I want to, advise you is that it actually is not that much quicker and cheaper to do a master's degree when you look at the numbers. The master's degree, whether it's an MHC, an MSW, or some other master's level training, it's 2 years of classes, which includes an unpaid internship, and then 3 years of underpaid supervised experience, often in an agency where they're giving you what's called fee for service, which means if your client comes, they will give you $20 an hour or $25 an hour, whatever the rate is, but not if your client doesn't come for the session, because they're not getting paid by the client's Medicaid or other insurance. And so it's pretty low paid supervised experience for those extra 3 years, and then you'll be able to become licensed. Well, when you look at the doctoral route, the PsyD or the PhD program, it's 3 years of classes, 1 year of paid internship, not unpaid internship, and 1 year of paid postdoc. And that's the same 5 years. So it stacks up a little bit differently, but it's not to my advantage or Brooklyn College's advantage to give you this advice, but I think it's the professionally responsible thing to do, to give you the straight story on the issue of doctoral programs. So please keep this in mind if you are having those kinds of thoughts. Ask other people. Don't take my word for it. So that concludes my presentation, and I want to hear your questions. This again is the contact information both for the Office of Graduate Admissions. If you have questions about admissions, about the application process and so forth, you should, that's Michelle's office, and there's their email address. I think we've got that all correct, but I'm sure Michelle will correct us if I've got some of that wrong. That's their website, that's their phone number. And then if you have questions that the graduate admissions can't answer specifically about the MHC program, a question that we don't get to today or that's too individual in nature, you can get in touch with the MHC program, and somebody from the admissions committee will get back to you at, send us an email, give us a call. And all this information that I've been talking about is on our website. That's mhc.brooklyn.cuny.edu.
Awesome. Professor, one of the questions that we had, they are wondering if this PowerPoint presentation, if it could be emailed to them. Is that possible?
If the presentation can be emailed to them.
Yes.
It's better to look at the website. It's
Okay.
all written out on the website, mhc.brooklyn.cuny.edu.
Okay. I sent them the link for the program's website. Also, before you continue, I want to administer a short 1-minute poll. I'm going to administer this poll, and I ask if you can just quickly answer the questions. Just a few questions. Is a survey that we want you to take part in, and then I will look at the questions that we have on the chat, and I'll ask the professor and he'll answer them. Okay, so I'm going to launch the poll right now. Please just take 1 minute to do it. Thank you so much. Okay, I just launched it. We're almost at 100%. Just give you guys a few more seconds to complete the poll. We're almost at 100%. Thank you so much.
So Michelle, I'm going to start answering some questions here while they finish the poll, if that's okay.
Oh, sure. Go ahead. You want me to read out the questions, or you'll just look at them yourself?
I think I can probably look through. Maybe you know some. If I miss some things, you feel free to chime in and call them to my attention.
Awesome.
Put your questions in the chat if you have questions, folks. That's where I'm looking. And Michelle, maybe you know what the tuition rate is. I'm not totally up to speed.
Okay, I will send the link. You can go ahead and answer questions, and I'm going to enter.
Yeah, you can see the tuition rate. It's the same, I think, for all of the CUNY programs, and you can look on the Brooklyn College website for tuition information. If I tell you, it will be something I remembering from 2 years ago or something.
Okay, I'm going to post it on the chat.
but it's much less than a private university. And a lot of people are asking questions about part-time programs. Where are the part-time programs? Most of the programs in the city university and at the private universities, most other programs are part-time programs. We are pretty unique in being a full-time program. There are some other full-time programs, but you know, it won't take you long. Just look at the other CUNY campuses. The other programs in the city are, you know, at all the private universities, NYU, Fordham, Pace, you know, they all have programs, and many of these are part-time programs. So it's not my kind of position to like tell you about all the other programs, and I don't necessarily follow them at an expert level, but you won't have trouble finding part-time programs. Somebody asked, why not do an MA program in psychology instead of an MHC? Because you're not going to be able to get licensed. The MHC program is for licensure, and it meets all the licensure requirements, and an MA program isn't necessarily going to do that. And that's the reason to do an MHC program. Somebody is asking about COVID. We had a very interesting time transitioning to remote operations last spring. And amazingly enough, I thought instructors and students would have a lot of trouble. And we all did have some stress from this, but we successfully transitioned to doing remote classes and remote participation in internships and in practicum and so forth. And all of our students finished their internships, all of our students graduated, and we were able to do that. And this fall, we are operating remotely. Everybody is taking classes by Blackboard and Zoom, and we know that everybody would like to be together in a classroom, but I think we're doing pretty well. We're being pretty successful in replicating the classroom experience, and there even are some advantages to, there are challenges, but there also are some advantages to remote instruction. And we are about to start remote based clinical work. That is, the students in the first year were a little behind where we would be in an in-person year, but usually it's about the same time. Right around the end of October is when the first MHC first year students start to do intake assessment, counseling with clients at the college's personal counseling clinic, and to get supervised on those cases, and everybody gets to watch the work of the students who go first, and so I think we're doing well. And my guess is we're going to be remote for this spring as well. I think it's going to be a kind of rough winter for COVID. And it's going to be necessary for us to continue in remote operation. But my guess is that maybe next fall, when you come into the program, we'll be back to doing some things in person. But it's really difficult to predict. It's going to depend on how effective the vaccine is and the vaccines. But it's possible that we'll have some remote operations next fall. I really hesitate to predict, but I do know that I think the wise thing to do is for people to continue with their education and their professional development, and not to kind of lose ground on those things, to keep that ball rolling for yourself if you can, I think is the wise thing to do, and not to take a time out for the pandemic. If you can possibly do that, I think this is a good use of the time to spend it on your professional development. Somebody's asking, you know, what if you don't have the 3.3 GPA that we recommend? Everybody has special circumstances. You have to explain why you are well prepared, even if it's not reflected in your GPA, you know, and we will take your explanation into account. But, you know whether you're a strong student. You know whether you're a student who is going to struggle with a full load with 5 classes and seeing patients during your first semester in the program, you know. And we don't want you to struggle too much. We don't want students in the program we don't want to set you up for a failure experience or for a terrible struggle. We want students in the program who are going to succeed. Doing this kind of work is challenging enough. You know, it presents a lot of emotional challenges. As a counselor, you are going to hear about some terrible experiences that people have had. There's a lot of trauma in the client population that we serve. And some of that's going on right now. Some of it's COVID related. Some of it existed and has always existed, you know, for all of us in our lives. But COVID isn't making it any better. We know that people who go through a pandemic, we know from other pandemics that have been experienced that about 7% of the population ends up with a diagnosable level of post-traumatic stress, PTSD. So that's a big addition to the number of people who need mental health services support. Okay, people are asking about finding a PhD program. There is no PhD program in the clinical or counseling area at Brooklyn College. For that, you have to go to another campus of the university. So far, anyway. And the counseling the clinical programs are, let's see, I think at City College, at Queens, at Baruch, at Hunter, and at John Jay. I think there are doctoral level programs on those campuses at the City University, and of course, private universities, Columbia, NYU, Fordham, have doctoral programs. Let's see, what other questions am I missing here?
I have a question.
Somebody speaking up, go ahead.
Yeah, I have a question. I work in the mental health field already. I work for ICL, the Institute for Community Living. I was wondering, is my work experience going to count towards if I do apply for my MAC?
Yes, your work experience is very valuable. We want people in this program who know what they're getting into, who understand what mental health work is, who understand the emotional demands of the work, and you know, we don't want people in this program who may be academically well prepared but come into the program and go, oh, I didn't know it was about these kinds of difficult and painful emotional issues. This is not for me. This is not what I wanted to do. So yes, we want you, we want your experience, and that will be an asset to you in applying to this program. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. Secondly, I was kind of put off by the fact that you said there was no part-time program because I'm a full-time, I work full-time. I'm here in America by myself, so I can't afford to take off and say I'm going to go to school for 2 years. I have bills and responsibility. So that kind of put me like.
Yeah, so you probably should be looking at a part-time program on another campus.
Okay.
You know, not every program is a good fit for every student, you know, and there are lots of part-time programs around, so you won't have trouble finding one. It's not as easy to find a full-time program if that's what you want.
Okay.
Okay, Professor, I see a question here. Does a general stats course count? Does a general stats course count?
We will sometimes consider a general stat program course if it's covered the appropriate material. If you are choosing a course to take a psychology stats course, because that course is going to teach you how statistics are applied to psychology research and issues. But if you have already taken a general stats course and it covers this, similar material, if it's covering analysis of variance, if it's covering an F-test, a T-test, a chi-square, we will probably accept that.
Great. Another question I see here, higher up in the chat, is what if you already have a master's degree in psychology? What if you already have a master's degree in psychology?
Generally, in order to get credit for courses taken at the master's level in another program or taken on a non-matriculated basis, they have to be more or less an exact match for our courses. So the courses you're most likely to get credit for, if you took developmental psychology, if you took a psychopathology course, sometimes people get credit for those courses, but our program is maybe not the best match for somebody who wants to apply a lot of credit from another master's program.
Greg, can I add a bureaucratic issue here?
Please.
If one has completed another master's degree and used those credits for that master's degree, you cannot use those credits for this master's degree. You can't.
No double dipping.
Yes, you can't. Complete 36 credits and get 24 master's degrees. If you've used it for one degree, you can't use it for the other degree. However, it's at the discretion of the director of the program. If you've taken during that period a psychopathology course, which maps out with what they're offering in the program, you might be able to not have to take that course over again, but instead take an elective, and through some bureaucratic paperwork, we could indicate that you have fulfilled a requirement for the psychopathology.
Somebody's asking about if they took an ethics course in anthropology, and the ethical issues in anthropology are quite different than the issues in counseling. So I'm guessing that would not be a good match.
That's at your discretion.
Yeah.
Another question I see, if your GPA is below 3.3, under what grounds are exception made, if any?
You have to argue to us why you think you are going to be able to do the work in this program as well as a student who has a higher GPA. We understand that some people end up with a low GPA because they had a rough start in college, or they maybe had a rough middle portion in college because their mother died, or they had some kind of trauma that interrupted their education. And if you can give us an explanation like that that makes sense and that matches your transcript, if you can show that you had one semester where you got all D's and you failed a couple of classes, but the last 2 years in college you got A's and B's, we don't go just by the average, we go by your individual profile and experience. What we want to know is that you are not going to sink under the weight of taking 5 graduate level classes and seeing clients and getting supervision, and trying to drive an Uber on the weekend.
I see a question, how much per credit, but I sent the link on tuition, so that covers that. I see a question, are there any part-time MHC master's programs or similar programs? I think you touched on that earlier.
I did, yeah.
Okay. All right. Can the program be completed in less than 2 years? How competitive is it to get in?
I don't know. The program cannot be completed in less than 2 years. Not at Brooklyn College and probably not at most colleges. It's just too difficult to do 60 credits and to get the 600-hour internship, to get all of that done. Well, actually, it is done in less than 2 years. It's done in not 24 months, but the program is done in, what do I want to say, 21 months.
Okay, a student is asking, so we don't have to have a master's degree in order to apply for a doctoral program?
You do not. In fact, doctoral programs tend to prefer applicants who come directly from a bachelor's program. Why? Because they want to teach you to do it their way.
Okay.
They don't want somebody who's already had half of their doctorate, had half of their graduate level training someplace else. Now, you might be somebody whose undergraduate work isn't strong enough to get admitted to a doctoral program. So then you have no choice but to take master's level courses and try to prove to them, to a doctoral program, that you are a strong student, even though it's not reflected in your undergraduate record. Maybe you were an undergraduate 10 or 20 years ago. Maybe you've been working and you're a more mature person now and more developed, and you are trying to demonstrate that.
Thank you. Will insurance companies cover practitioners with an MHC degree for private practice?
Will insurance companies, that's what they're asking?
Yeah, will insurance companies cover practitioners with an MCH degree for private practice?
With an MHC degree.
Yeah.
Some will and some won't. Insurance companies are, different. And when the MHC is new in New York State, it's more established in some other states, been around longer, but licensing of MHC practitioners is about 10 years or 12 years old in New York State, and the insurance companies are still adapting to it. But when MHCs first started coming out of MHC programs, it was difficult to get insurance coverage, but it's more accepted now, but it's not universal.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much. A student
and the social workers went through this too with their profession. For a long time, to get any coverage as a social worker, you had to have what they call the R level. It wasn't enough just to have an LCSW. You had to have an R, which means a certain level of registration and additional experience. So, fighting with insurance companies is a universal experience now.
Okay, another question.
Pardon me. I'm sorry, would you mind? That was the insurance company question was my question.
Okay.
I just wanted to follow up on that. Is it possible to achieve the R level with the MHC?
That's a social work convention.
Oh, okay, so I wouldn't have to.
And it's kind of an obsolete thing now, I think.
Really? Okay. Great. Would you mind if I asked just one more follow-up question?
Please, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I took an intro to psychology course about 25 years ago as part of my bachelor's degree. Who will be making the determination whether or not that meets the requirement of the general, intro to psychology credits that are required for the degree? When and how will that determine?
We don't ding you for how old the class is, because what you lose in the current, you know, even somebody who took Intro to Psychology 2 years ago probably has forgotten 97% of what they
Okay.
learned in that class from the specifics.
Okay.
So, and you have forgotten 99% instead of just 97%. But what you have lost in specific knowledge, you have gained in life experience and maturity, and we do recognize that.
Okay.
So
as far as applying the credit, it was a 3-credit course. I mean, is there any chance of applying it toward the 15 needed for the degree application?
yes.
Okay. Who makes that determination and how?
It's automatic.
Okay.
It's automatic. If you have intro, developmental, psychopathology, and stats, plus one other course, it can be any psychology course.
And so they'll just see that on the transcript and apply
That's
it
right.
accordingly. Okay, great.
That's
Thank
right.
you very much.
And in fact, we will look at your transcript, but we actually, on the fact sheet that you submit, you have to submit a little summary for us, and we will ask you to do our work for us.
Okay.
To summarize your qualifications and show us which classes you've had, which classes you haven't had, and what your grades were in those classes.
Great.
And then we will look at the transcript to verify what you tell us.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you very much.
But we do appreciate more mature students and, you know, students who have worked in the field. I'm sorry that a full-time program isn't maybe going to work for the woman who was had experience working in the field, but I'm sure you'll be a great asset, and that experience will be an asset to the program that works for you. So when we appreciate those things.
Thank you
but
very much.
we also appreciate students who are new grads and who've had some work experience, like I said, maybe tutoring kids or, you know, some other experience working with people.
The next question, what if you have been out of school for a long time? Can you have one academic letter and 2 professional letters of recommendation? So basically the student wants to know if they've
Yes, we understand that you've been out of school a long time. Maybe the professors there don't remember you from 20 years ago. We get it. And we understand that your professional references. So the guidance about 2 academic references is for more recent grads. And if you've been out a long time, we want to hear about what you've been doing recently and what professionals think about your qualifications. So yeah, thank you for that question.
A couple students wants to know, does Brooklyn College offer any PhD programs in the psychology field?
Well, all PhD programs in the university are offered by the university, almost all of them, except for the clinical program at City College, which actually is offered by City College. But no, there are no doctoral programs offered at Brooklyn College. But let's see, the experimental doctoral program, is that right, Dwezzy, is still housed at Brooklyn College?
No.
No.
Let me clarify what you said just a moment. Let me just clarify something that you said, because you didn't. There is a separate unit within the City University of New York, like Brooklyn College, Queens College. There's a separate unit, a separate building called the Graduate Center in Manhattan. And all of the doctoral programs within the City University of New York are run through the Graduate Center. But even though there is a geographic distribution of some of these programs, so a lot of the activity for what used to be called the experimental psychology program, but is now it was cognition, brain, and behavior, and it's changed, is at Brooklyn College. It's actually run bureaucratically through the Graduate Center. If you were going to apply to a PhD program, you'd apply through the Graduate Center. And since since bureaucracy is the highest form of reality, even though it looks like there's some activity going on at Brooklyn College, it's really through the Graduate Center. You apply through the Graduate Center and you pay, you register through the Graduate Center and you pay, but different sub-programs are geographically distributed on different campuses. So for example, the clinical psychology program that's joined with forensic psychology, there's a doctoral program, that's geographically located at John Jay College, John Jay College for Criminal Justice, but you would apply for it through the Graduate Center. The sole exception to all of this is what Professor Kuhlman just mentioned, and that is the PhD program in clinical psychology at City College. They have declared independence of some sort, and so you
got a special deal.
Yes, they got dispensation of some sort. I don't know. So they're separate, but if you're interested in doctoral programs in psychology within the City University of New York, the place to go to is the website of the Graduate Center. And there you'll see what they offer, and you can also get a sense of which campus they're on, geographically speaking. And the website for the Graduate Center is gc.cuny.edu, GC for Graduate Center. Okay.
It's a complicated world. Thank God there's Google, though.
Student is asking.
Speak for yourself.
Well, Buzzy, Dr. Chanowitz is a troglodyte, so and a proud one. A proud one.
Well,
Student is asking which professor runs the CBT program at Brooklyn College. I'm not sure what that's referring to, but which professor runs the CBT program at Brooklyn College? Is anyone familiar with that?
There is no CBT program. You mean which professor teaches CBT?
I guess, I don't know.
Yeah, the CBT class at Brooklyn College, and it has been Professor Regatta, who is a full-time member of the psychology faculty and who is an expert practitioner in that area. I don't think she's going to teach that class this spring. And so we're in the process of hiring somebody to teach in that area. But I believe Professor Regatta may come back to it the following spring by the time you guys would be admitted. But Professor Regatta has been the central kind of CBT person in our program.
Thank you so
and
much.
She's great.
Another question. You let me know when I should stop. Are there any differences from Brooklyn College's mental health program than others such as Baruch, Queen, CCNY?
Yeah, so I had a slide for that. And maybe some people came in later. So those programs are not all full-time programs. And those programs don't have the peer kind of support experience that you get from going to an intensive full-time program. Those programs do not all teach the whole range of clinical practice. They won't all teach you equally psychodynamic, CBT, Gestalt, family, and group kinds of approaches. They aren't all even-handed. Some of those programs have a preferred approach, and they will emphasize those approaches, you know, as compared to our kind of more even-handed approach, where we want to expose you, because we don't think you're ready to make those choices. We want you to understand the choice. And it's also true that different clinical approaches work better in different situations with different populations, with different clients, and different students do better with particular approaches. The other thing that's different about our program is that we emphasize beginning to do actual work with clients early. Right about now is when our current first-year students are going to start. Some of them are going to start seeing clients, and they're going to watch the work of their fellow students, and they're going to watch the supervision of that work and learn from actual, clinical experience that will bring to life the book learning, the didactic academic book instruction is important, but it's much more difficult to understand if you aren't having the experience of working with counseling clients. So we emphasize experience, but we also have high standards for didactic academic learning. We treat you like doctoral students, even though you're not doctoral students, in a certain way.
Thank you. Here's a good one. Are students able to do this program, mental health counseling, and also take the geriatric or autism spectrum certificate at the same time?
And I discourage people from doing that, because you should not, believe me, you have plenty on your plate doing the MHC work and learning to work with clients and meeting the emotional and intellectual challenges of doing that. Now, if you are one of the people who come to the program and you have already taken graduate level developmental psychology, or you've taken graduate level psychopathology, maybe you could take a class in that program instead of taking something that you've already taken. But in general, it would take too much of your attention away from doing the MHC degree. It might be possible for you to do it, but it's not recommended.
Thank you so much. Here's another one. I have taken courses such as social psych of the internet and psychology of humor. Can this count towards abnormal psychology?
No.
Okay. Okay. Are there other opportunities to learn about other treatment modules such as ACT, DBT, etc.?
Well, ACT and DBT are both varieties of CBT. Those are cognitive behavioral therapies, and yes, so you will learn about those.
Thank you so much. Just a reminder, if your Zoom, the name on your Zoom does not match the name that you used when you registered for the event, please send me a private message giving me your full name, first name, last name, and email address, so we can update the attendance record and any information we want to send you, anything we need to email you, because this event is being recorded. You'll be able to access the entire presentation, and anything else that we will want to follow up with you, we would need your entire name and email address. However, I noticed some of you all, we're seeing a phone number and no name, or we're just seeing a first name or a nickname. If you can give your entire name, first and last name, and your email address that you registered for this event, please send it in private message so we can update the attendance record and send you all the information that we need. I see another question here. Professor, you let me know if it's okay to continue with the question.
Yes, it is, but let me just say something. I see that that somebody's putting my email address into the chat, which is okay. I will send your email on to the admissions people who will respond to your question. But it's better for you to write to the admissions people directly. And I'm going to put that address back on the back on the screen. I'm going to share that. So you see it there on the right-hand side towards the bottom, bcmhcp@gmail. bcmhcp@gmail. That's the email address to write if you have specific questions. If you write to me, I'll just be sending it on. And I'm not the best clerical person, so it's possible it'll go astray if I'm distracted. So better if you write to that address.
Thank you so much. I see another question.
What's the next question?
Another question. Would a job in counseling suffice for fieldwork? Would a job in counseling be possible for the fieldwork? I'm sorry.
No, we don't let you use your job as the fieldwork experience because it's a conflict of interest.
Thank you so much.
That's why. Some programs may allow you, so you should ask around if that's important to you.
Okay. I see someone sent some information along for those who were interested in part-time. They said that a friend of theirs did a part-time program at Fordham and liked it. So if anyone is interested in a part-time program, you can look up the part-time program at Fordham. Thank you, Sophia, for sending that information along. Another question for you, Professor. Is there an interview process for the second year internship? Is there an interview process for the second year internship?
Oh yeah, that's a great question because this is not social work. In social work, they will put you someplace. You know, they will say, you're assigned to be an intern here, maybe they take your preferences into account, but they have 400 or 500 students to deal with, not 40. In MHC, it works differently. It's an application process, just like applying to graduate school. You send your resume to the sites that you're interested in. You have to provide a letter of readiness from us. And a gentleman named Avner Aronoff, Dr. Aronoff, is our internship coordinator and also our alumni relations coordinator. And Avner, believe it or not, the first semester that you're in the program right now, Dr. Aronoff is meeting with first-year students to talk about applying for their internships for next year. And you saw that I posted, if you were here early enough, you saw that one of my slides was a long list of about 100 different places that have taken our interns in the past, accepted interns from us. So there are lots of choices. And Dr. Aronoff keeps a big book where students rate their experience at different internship sites. So he gives you a lot of guidance about, where you might want to apply if you have particular interests. And we help you with that process, but it's up to you to apply and to interview, and hopefully you get multiple offers and you have some choices. But I can tell you that even this year with all the disruption, and we were wondering how our students would do with finding internship experiences in the remote world, the Zoom world, the Blackboard world, all of our second year students have internships. And we're really proud of that. We're proud of them. And so be careful about asking me questions because I just go on and on.
Oh, the students love that. A question, do you know if this program will qualify for licensure in Canada?
I have no clue.
Okay.
Probably is my guess, but there's going to be some government bureaucracy in Canada, some licensure board and I'm going to guess if you Google Canada MHC licensure right now and open a different tab in your browser and if you Google that, you're going to find the regulations about that and the person to email or call. And they're much friendlier up in Canada than we are here in New York State. So dealing with the New York State licensing board is not that much fun, but I'll bet, I'll bet you could actually get an answer from the licensing board in Canada, or find the information posted on their website.
I see a question from Ariel. I'm not sure. So Ariel, if you're on, you could unmute yourself. The question I see is, so potentially could one attend from out of state? I'm not sure if the student is referring to the fact that we're doing classes online due to COVID.
Yeah, that's what they're talking about. That's what they're talking about. And yes, we have a lot of students attending from out of state right now. And in fact, we have a student attending from New Zealand. She was here in New York last year when she applied, but she decided to go home to New Zealand, where they're on an island and they have much better control over COVID. But if you go home to New Zealand or to California or to Texas or to Canada, you have to be prepared to come back if we resume remote operations. If we resume in-person operations, which we will, by the time you guys get here next fall, I hope that we will be prepared to be doing in-person classes and in-person meetings with clients and so forth. So if we're operating remotely like we are right now, you can be anywhere.
Awesome.
When we go back to in-person operations, you need to be at Brooklyn College 4 days a week.
Okay, so we have another question here. If I have a BFA, would I be able to apply and attend, assuming I was admitted and finished the prerequisite courses?
Yes, any bachelor's degree is acceptable, and but you do have to have the prerequisite courses before you start. You don't have to have them to apply, but you should start taking them in next spring or next summer.
Okay, I think I've covered. If I am certified in peer counseling and went to a therapist for over 2 years, can it assist myself in becoming a therapist?
Yes.
Okay.
Those are helpful experiences. One of the best ways to learn about becoming a therapist is to be in therapy and to watch your therapist doing their job at close range. So experience being in therapy, being in counseling is a valuable experience. Experience being a peer counselor is a valuable experience. We regard that as an asset.
Professor, sorry, that was my question. What I was trying to say was, would that be able to help me, to get into the program? I have an engineering degree, and then I have 2 years I went to a therapist, and then I have a peer counseling license I should be getting soon. Will I have to still take prerequisite courses?
Oh, yes, you still have to take the prerequisite courses, yes. Unless you've taken some equivalent course in your peer counseling preparation. If you've taken some, you may be able to count one of your peer counseling courses if it's at an accredited university as the part of the as part of the prereqs, but you have to have intrapsychology, developmental, psychopathology, and statistics.
And those things will carry on into my master's, or will I have to still take 60 credits?
No, the prerequisites are prerequisites. They don't count towards the master's. Everybody has to take 60 credits. It's a 60 credit master's program.
All right, thank you, Professor.
Thank you for your question, Mohammed.
That's a great question.
Another question, any book recommendations before matriculating or applying?
Any what?
Any book recommendations before matriculating or applying?
Yeah, we're reading a great book now. It's called Asymmetry. And, but it's a novel. No, no, do the prerequisites. You know, don't try to start the program before you start. Have a life. It's hard to have a life now, though. You can have a Zoom life, you can have a remote life, a virtual life. You know, be a volunteer someplace.
Awesome. Is it difficult finding a job after completion of the program? Is it difficult finding a job after completion of the program?
It depends. It depends. For a pretty large proportion, maybe a third, a quarter, or a third of people who are graduating, that they're doing their internship someplace, and the agency where they're doing their internship, or the hospital where they're doing their internship, or the substance abuse treatment facility where they're doing their internship loves them, and they have an opening, and they want the person that they already know. You know, they know that the intern is good, and they hire them. And in fact, I get complaints all the time from graduates: hurry up and send me my graduation certification so that I can start work at the place where I've been an intern. And I know, Buzzy, you get those requests too. And so, yes, some of our students have a very easy time. They just slide right into a job at the place where they've been working as an intern. But that's not the majority of people. You know, for some people, they have to go out and job hunt, you know. And I can tell you that mental health, if you look at the Occupational Outlook, which is an official US government publication, you can find it probably on the Labor Department's website, you will see that mental health services is a growth area. There are expected to be more new jobs, not just talking about replacing people who are retiring, but there are going to be more new jobs in mental health. It's a growth area. But that said, you know, if you're a strong student, it will be easier for you to find a job on average. You know, if you're struggling a little bit more, if you're challenged a little bit more, or if you're just unlucky, it may take you longer to find a job. Some of the jobs you find are better than others, like people who get hired out of an internship sometimes get hired into a full-time job, pays a decent salary, decent entry-level salary, you know, pay and get some benefits, and get your supervised experience even before you're licensed. Other people have to take these fee-for-service positions in clinics where they, you know, they get $20 when they see a client. If the client doesn't show, they get Zippo, and you know, it can be a little difficult. But everybody finds, you know, a way to get their supervised professional experience and get their 3 years of experience towards the licensure. But it's not always a smooth path. For some people, it's smoother than others. I don't know if that answers your question. We do try to follow up with our grads about what they are doing now, but often our grads are too busy to answer us about these questions. And so we don't know what's happening with everybody, but we do know a lot about the experiences that people have had. But now, of course, it's all gone crazy with COVID and state budgets and mental health budgets, but we know there's going to be a lot of demand for mental health services. whether states and insurance companies are going to have money to pay for it, that's going to be an interesting question that'll get sorted out.
Okay, another question. Will there be another Zoom session being held in the future? I guess maybe you can talk about your
Yeah.
that are coming up.
Yeah, we have, you know, we work with the graduate admissions department with Michelle and her colleagues to do an open house every fall, but we also offer information sessions, which are very similar to this. And you will see, if you go to that website, mhc.brooklyn.cuny.edu, or you go to the graduate admissions website, you will see the dates. I think we have one coming up in November. And I'm not sure beyond that. I don't have the dates in front of me, but if you go to the MHC website, mhc.brooklyn.cuny.edu, you'll see. And I believe Michelle told me she was recording this, and I see the little recording icon up at the top of my screen. So the recording for the open house tonight, I think, is going to be posted on somewhere on the graduate admissions website pretty soon.
The communications department is putting together all the recordings from all the sessions, from all the programs, and then it will be submitted on the website. That's why I'm asking everyone submits their first and last name and email address so we can get your email address to send you any follow-up information and let you know when these things will be available. Okay.
So there'll be a lot of ways to get, there'll be a lot of ways. If you have more questions, you can come to one of these information sessions, or maybe come late in the session. If you don't want to hear the presentation again, just come from the question and answer period and ask your question. Or if you have a friend, you can send them to the next info session. We do at least a couple more during the fall usually. Sometimes we'll do one in January or February.
Okay, it's winding down. I see one here. I understand the prerequisites need to come from accredited university. Are there any specific advice for where to get them? The prerequisite courses, if there's any particular.
Yeah, Brooklyn College is a great place to get them because we know that no, seriously, because we know that the courses are going to be, you know, good quality courses at Brooklyn College. We know the curriculum and we know the instructors who are teaching these classes at Brooklyn College. So, and all these classes are by remote instruction now. So wherever you are, it's not a problem commuting to Brooklyn College to take these courses in the spring, and it'll probably be remote next summer, at least some of the classes. But you may prefer to go someplace else. I wouldn't recommend going necessarily to a community college. You want to go to some place where the class is going to be robust.
Okay, I think I covered everything. If there are other questions that you have, you can feel free to email them to me and I can send it to the appropriate person. But I think I pretty much covered everything. If your question wasn't read out loud, it's because it was answered before, or the information was sent via the link. So I think we pretty much covered everything. If there's anyone with a question that I didn't ask and it wasn't brought up, if you want to unmute your mic and ask it now, we'll take 2 more questions before we log off. 2 more questions before we log off. If anyone has a question that I didn't bring up, or it wasn't mentioned in a previous answer, or it's not in any of the links that I sent.
Don't all speak at once.
I think
I have a question.
Maya has a question. Go ahead, Maya.
About the prerequisites, would we be able to email someone from the office prior to our application to see if we have all the prerequisites and if they would be accepted? So, you know, that if we were, so that we could schedule to take those classes in the spring. Does that make sense?
I don't understand what you're asking.
If I need another prerequisite, I would love to take that in the spring. I don't know if I would have enough time to sign up for the course by the time I find out if accepted or not, or if you accepted the prerequisites.
Well, if any MHC class program that you apply to is going to have roughly similar prerequisites, so you don't necessarily have to wait to see if you're accepted in our program.
If I understand the question correctly, what you're not sure if the courses that you've already completed cover all of the prerequisites that are required.
Exactly.
So what you might be able to do is send an unofficial transcript to that email address, and ask whether or not it looks like you've satisfied all the prerequisites.
Okay. Perfect. Thank you.
bcmhcp@gmail.
Got it. Thank you.
Question. Due to the fact that I'm already a Brooklyn College student, and if I want to enter into the program, would all my credits transfer from my bachelor's into the master's program, or?
No, none of your bachelor's credits count towards they have to be graduate level classes. And generally, unless it's an exact fit, don't try to take classes to transfer into the program. It's better to take the classes within the program, then it's a well integrated. But no, bachelor's level classes don't transfer into master's programs at any university. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Yeah. Unless you've taken some graduate level classes that did not count towards your bachelor's degree, you cannot count a class towards different degrees. Once a class has been counted towards a particular degree, you can't count that class towards another degree. So that's another problem with.
Okay, so I think we pretty much answered all the questions and we're able to wrap up. We will be sending you guys follow-up emails and the recording will be made available on the website. We want to thank you so much for your time, for logging in. We want to thank Professor so much for all the valuable information that he has given us tonight. Not only a presentation, but he spent time answering all the questions. We want to also thank Professor Shanowitz, who chimed in and kept our company tonight. Thank you for all the valuable information.
Michelle.
Yes?
I was gonna ask the professor one thing. So like, I just wanted to know, like, the credits that we have, the prerequisites are 12, they're 12 credits, right? They're 4 classes, they're times 3, they're 12 credits, right?
There's 4 classes, 12 credits, but you have to have another class. You have to have 15 classes, including those 4 classes.
You have to have 15 classes on top?
You have to have 15 credits, including those classes. So those classes make 12 credits usually, unless they were 4 credit classes, and then it's 16 credits. So you have to have those 4 classes plus one other psychology class.
Let me add. All right, go ahead.
I have to take 5. So I have to take 5 classes next semester. I'm an engineer.
Next semester and over the summer. You have the summer too. You can take a couple of classes next summer.
So I have to take a total of 5 classes now.
You could, yeah. Ideally, you could do one of the classes, in the summer between the first and second year of the program. But I would recommend trying to get them done. You could take one class this January. You could take a couple of classes in the spring and a couple of classes next summer.
Okay. All right. Sounds good.
Some combination.
All right. And this is all I could register and everything online, right? To take one class or 2.
Yes, I believe so.
Okay.
I see we have someone by the name of Corey who just came in. So Corey, we're going to allow you to ask a question before we log off. If you have a question, Corey, that you want to ask before we log off, please ask it now. You have to unmute your microphone and ask your question if you have a question for us before we log on. Oh, no, Corey does not have a question. Okay, great. So thank you, everyone. And we're about to end our event tonight. Thank you for coming out. Professor Shanaway?
I was going to mention the fact I saw a question that was on the chat that might respond to Mohammed's question as well. And I hesitate to say it out loud because I wonder what Professor Kuhlman will say. But I believe someone asked, what about if we take 4 courses where each of the courses is 4 credits? Would that satisfy the 15?
Yes. Yes, it's 15 credits, including those 4 courses. You do not have to take 5 courses if they were if it was 4 credit courses. That meets the criteria.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify that because that might respond to Mohammed's question as well. Statistics usually is more than 3 credits.
Is that right?
Yes.
Very exciting.
Well, you have to give them something extra for suffering.
Okay, I lied. I see Jen has one last question, and I promise this is the last question. One last
promises.
As for the recommendation letters, last year I was told I would need 3 recommendation letters. 2 had to be academic and 1 had to be from a professional source. I see that now it's optional to have a professional source. Does that mean that all recommendation letters can come from professors?
Yes, all recommendations can come from professors. Excuse me. It's good if you have some related volunteer or work experience and you can get a letter from somebody who supervised you in that experience. But if you want to submit 3 academic letters, that's acceptable.
Okay, thank you so much. So everyone have a good night. Thank you once again, and we will be following up with you.
Thanks for coming. Appreciate your time. Appreciate your questions. You're a great group.
Thank you.
Thanks. Maybe see you next fall.
Yep. We'll be looking forward to it. Thank
or
you.
at an interview.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to end now.
Good
Thank
night.
you so much. Good night.